Gee, guys, what happened to May? So a little update about my progress for the contest. I'm quite behind my schedule because a whole month seems to just disappear so quickly because life happens. I feel a bit like Mr. Incredible when Frozen shouts, "Should you be getting ready?" And he says, "I still got time," while chaos breaks out around him. But it's true, I've still got time. Though I have to be careful, otherwise, like him, I'll be late to my deadline. I'm still aiming to be done by the end of June, first week of July, around that time. I have started thumbnailing my episode, even though I have not finalized all the designs for my characters. But that's what stick figures are for. Like these ones here are old thumbnails from the previous contest, so I just need stick figures. I don't need details yet. And I know what characters I need, I just don't know what they look like. I have been struggling with the design of my main character, Mirror. So I decided to look at how I designed Ollie for inspiration. I find talking about my ideas helps develop them more and gets me into the right mindset. I started thinking about ideas for the story since 2015. I knew I wanted a big, friendly type secondary character, a brother for my main character. He started off as this giant because I had first developed the idea for Mirror's mom, which was a giantess. And then my whole idea for Mirror's family changed. And so the idea of her brother, Oliver, also changed. And I fiddled around for a while and doodled, and eventually I finally drew this tiny drawing of a big fluffy boy. This doodle was the beginning of an idea that would become Ollie. Then I started thinking of ways to connect Ollie to Mirror. His final design came from my idea of Mirror. I had the idea for Mirror in my head for quite a while before I finally drew her in 2016 while on a seaside holiday with my family. You can see at this point I was very inspired by the Asterix comics. Ollie is kind of the Obelix to Mirror's Asterix. The early stages of my comic were heavily influenced by Asterix because that was my main source of comics. I'd seen the odd web comic, but never seen many web comics, and my family had a ton of the Asterix and Obelix books, almost all of them. So that was my main inspiration for comics and what made me want to get into comics. So you can see that in the style here of this very first drawing of my Dreamworld characters. Then around the start of 2017, I discovered the existence of Line Webtoon. And when the 2018 contest was announced, that's when I really started to develop my comic idea. I started thinking, what does Mirror actually do? I had these other old designs of her before I came up with what her character does. I had the rough idea of my Dreamworld and her character, and the village characters, which are based on my dogs. But I didn't have much of an idea for a story. I had a few ideas for scenes, but that doesn't matter if you can't string them together and ground them with good characters. In my dream world, human minds, are these big floating planets from which dream dust falls. Dream dust is our emotions, our thoughts, our dreams. It's everything that goes on in our minds. The creatures that live in the dream world are made of this dust, and the world they live on is a sort of ever-expanding collective consciousness. I had to tell you a bit about the world because the world creates the characters, which develops the world more. So in 2018, I was trying to come up with more ideas for Mirror. I researched dream creatures and mythologies to do with dreams to get inspiration for my dream world, and I came across the Baku. Baku are Japanese supernatural beings that eat nightmares. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. They are described as a creature with an elephant's head, rhino's eyes, an ox's tail, and a tiger's paws. Baku are also often depicted as a tapir, because the Japanese term baku has two meanings, referring to both the legendary dream-eating creature and to the tapir. Anyway, so I imagined that the dream creatures can see our thoughts and our myths because, everything falls from our minds to the dream world below. They have these little professor characters that study the real world. They have these dream creatures that could absorb other dream creatures. And they called these creatures the baku and dressed them to look like the Japanese creatures of legend. These are all my old ideas, by the way. It has changed a bit, but this is how I got the thinking that got to the design of Ollie. I made Mirror be one of these creatures. Here's an early drawing of her with an elephant's mask. I sculpted her with the idea was that they were able to change the people, that they get one attribute of the baku. So in her case, she got the ox's tail in her design. And then whatever they don't get, they get masks, like an elephant mask and tiger tattoos and all of that. And that's how the baku used to work. And the idea of Ollie was that he's a creature called an awat. They are creatures formed by the fright a human gets when they see a strange, creepy shadow out of the corner of your eye. Like the other day, I was walking down the passage in the dark. We had no power that day. And my brother was coming from the other end of the passage, and I had my headlamp on, but it didn't light up to the end of our passage. But it was enough light to catch his dog's, the reflection in his dog's eyes, and they glow an orange color when you catch them with light in the dark. But it wasn't enough to light up my brother and the dog. He was carrying him at head height. So I'm used to their little orange eyes at floor height, but I'm not used to it at head height. And so I was walking and I got this biggest fright because there's these orange eyes staring out at you at the dark, and it's taller than you. So that's what I know what is. It's that quick fright of things that aren't actually a danger. You just imagine a monster. When there's no monsters, there's just something that's normal, but it took you by surprise. They are half-formed creatures that need to be completed. All dream creatures that fall from thinkers, that's what the dream worlders call us. They call us thinkers. All of the creatures that fall from them are half-formed. Dream creatures that have lived on the world for generations, they're fully formed. They don't need to be completed. And they just carry on like normal and have families, and so they go on through the generations. Mirror is also a creature that fell from her thinker. She was an imaginary friend, the reflection of a little girl sitting bored in front of the mirror while her mother did her hair for school. And she called her friend Mirror. So Ollie formed when a husband gave his wife a fright when he carried a massive teddy bear as a gift for her in the dark. As you can see in his design, I made him have cute little teddy bear feet. Then in the dream world, these two half-formed creatures merged to become one, and eventually they were split apart by a baku. The baku at that point in my story, they could split creatures up and make them whole, but properly completed. So this baku split them up and made them into their own two individual creatures. And that's the final design of Ollie. He didn't have a face when he formed because it was just a shadow. And the baku provided him with a mask. He formed around the mask and that's his face. So that was the idea behind it. And I drew these masks trying to get an idea for how he would look. And I drew this elephant-like mask. It's a nice link to Mirror because at that point she was to become a baku. And I drew this image of Ollie, then this little side profile, and then I sculpted him, and this is his final design. Now he's become a sort of comfort character for me. I really enjoy drawing him. Even when I'm feeling stressed and art blocked and I'm struggling to get drawing, then I just doodle Ollie and it just makes me happy and I'm able to draw again, and I draw a whole bunch of other things. Like here was some study notes. I was struggling with studying. I was just frustrated, and then I doodled Ollie and I doodled some more, and then I passed my exam the next day. And that is Oliver's final design. His origin story has changed a lot, as has the world building for my dream realm. But that is a spoiler, so I won't go into too much detail about that yet. I think one of the reasons I've been struggling with Mirror's design is that I've been keeping it too close to my original design. I've been too scared to completely change it and explore other options, even though that is exactly what I think I need to do with it. I forget how much Ollie's character actually changed. I always have this idea that I just doodled him like this and was immediately happy with his character. But I forget that he went from this all the way to this. And that's not even including all the changes I made in my head that I hadn't drawn yet. So I'm going to go experiment with her design until I finally come up with something that I'm happy with. Hopefully before the end of the contest I get something that's at least close to what I want her to be. Maybe make a stand-in for the contest. She looks older than what I'm gonna age her up, because my original idea was that she was that imaginary friend of a little kid and just looked like that then forever, even though she's like in her 20s, but she looks like a kid. And I'm not happy with that idea anymore. I found that it's a common trope actually, and it can be quite a gross trope, so I'm changing her completely. Thanks for listening to me ramble. I needed to remind myself of my process for designing characters. And the submissions have opened for the Webtoon's Call to Action contest. I wish everyone good luck. Bye-bye, I better go get drawing. Sky is busy barking. She's still barking. Waiting. Okay, done.